Hi, my name is James Mello. I'm a sound designer and composer, and this is my game audio implementation demo reel for Wwise.
So good. They know you're here, so try out that full auto.
For this demo, I designed all the sound and interactive music for the open source first-person shooter game Cube. I focused on creating sound design and music that catered to the map as it existed, as if a client had presented a concept for a game to me with no sound or music, so I did virtually zero graphic map editing. I made the music interactive, responding to player health status, and also created custom triggers and point source sounds by editing command lines in the map CFG file. During this process, I constantly kept in mind the vision and overall vibe of the map, which was dark, labyrinth-like, and often had the sense of impending doom. To start, I used the profiler in Wwise to capture a log file of all the sounds triggered in-game from the beginning of the map to the very end. From this file, I made an asset list spreadsheet of every sound that needed to be created, music included. A great natural resource for sound design proved to be my friendly local garbage truck slamming down large dumpsters in the back of my apartment. This would be a gold mine for gunshots and explosions. For the machine gun, I layered just the initial attack of a dumpster slam, and also a textbook being thrown on a linoleum floor. This would be the body of the gunshot. I combined these with the banging of wrenches and kettlebells to add a hint of metallic sounding mechanics to the rapid fire gunshot. All layers played together, the machine gun sounds like this. The monsters also have their own arsenal of weapons. The ogre, for instance, has a big fireball it shoots. For this sound, I wanted the player to feel like a giant bonfire is being hurled at them. I took a stock recording of a raging bonfire, EQ'd and looped the loudest part of the bonfire to make it sound more menacing, and Wwise, I applied object attenuation and 3D spatialization via the listener relative routing section. As fireballs get hurled around the player, they are heard from the left, right, and front and behind. The closer they are, the louder they are. If the fireball is further away, it is lower in volume, with a low-pass filter attenuating more as the distance becomes greater. Here it is all in action. In Cube, there are 6 different enemy monsters the player encounters. A lot of the monster sounds were created layering different stock recordings of animals such as howler monkeys, crocodiles, and lions, but I also used some other non-wild animal recordings. There's a monster called the Slith. It's tall, lurks with big strides, and is almost reptilian-like. I wanted sounds to reflect how it looked and moved. For the Slith growl, I layered the draining sound of a restaurant dishwasher, a lion, a crocodile hissing, and 2 crocodile exhales pitched differently. Altogether, it sounds like this. I enlisted some of Seattle's finest voiceover talent for the player pain sounds and monster intercom alerts.
Overflow basin access open.
To make this combat first-person shooter feel more immersive, a new fictional character was created named Colonel Rickson, played by yours truly, me.
Careful, there are more where that little guy came from.
Colonel Rickson communicates via satellite and is critical in calling out items of value as well as providing important focus on mission objectives.
Rocket launcher ammo 12 o'clock. You don't find that every day.
To bring Colonel Rickson to life, I recorded my voiceovers into Ableton Live and put a CB radio effect on the vocals with added CB radio static during his live transmissions.
Look for red switches to gain access to sectors. Head on a swivel. I'm sure you'll have company.
To execute this in-game, I had to edit the map CFG file and add my own command lines in the game's code. Each command line in the code is assigned its very own specific trigger number, which refers to a specific event called in Wwise that plays the sound object which contains the Colonel Rickson voiceover. Colonel Rickson chiming in made the game feel more goal-oriented, like an actual mission with purpose and objectives. While editing the CFG file, I added more trigger command lines for sound emitters which added distance-sensitive sound cues for items of importance on the map. As you approach and get closer to the item, it emits a sound that gets louder in volume via object attenuation. This alludes that it is significant and of great value. Some emitters had percussion loops, which were performed and recorded at the same BPM of the game's music. Each item also had percussive musical stingers as they were picked up in-game. Each stinger was triggered on beat and in tempo of the game's music, and also had an event stop action to stop the existing emitter sound from playing. In order to get the emitters and stingers to start on beat and all function in time with the music, they had to be added as game sync triggers in the music's main switch group stingers tab. All game sync triggers were assigned to play at next beat. More custom emitters were also created to add more ambience to the environment, such as computer and water sounds. Player underwater states were also applied, in which the low-pass filter attenuated all monster, player, and ambient sounds. In order to place the triggers and emitters around the game's map, I went into the map's edit function and added triggers to the edit command new ent trigger followed by the appropriate trigger number. For the music, I composed it to sound how the map level looked and felt. This map is dark, vast, and labyrinth-like with many different rooms and dungeon-like chambers. I composed dark, suspenseful ambient music that was ever evolving, with a subtle underlying pulse to inspire the player to constantly march forward and explore, yet not be distracting to gameplay. I performed the music through electronic drums and Ableton Live's push MIDI controller for both percussion, tonal instruments, synths, as well as choir vocals. For the main part of the map, the music is constantly interactive and changes depending on the player's health through Wise's health status switch. As the player takes more damage, the music heightens in intensity with more percussive layers and hits. When health gets dangerously low, the player's breathing and heartbeat become audible to build tension and signify the dire state of the player's character. These were built with playlist containers that were assigned to different health states within the health status switch group. Each health state playlist container has multiple music tracks that it constantly and randomly loops through. This keeps the score evolving and adds critical musical variation to each health state, avoiding repetitive musical statements. Smooth and seamless transitions between these tracks and health states is also critical. Under the Transitions tab, the transition behavior can be set for each playlist container. During a health status change, I had a transition on the next beat and in time with the music. Each of these transitions also have proper crossfades between them, so nothing sounds abrupt or distracting during the transition. The enemy characters also interact musically with the score through the triggers Monster Attack Near and Monster Attack Far. When the enemy fires at the player from a long distance, it triggers a low register rising tone that bellows into the score. When the enemy fires at close range, a subtle yet urgent tone is played. These musical cues triggered by the enemy are ambient in nature, but during combat help build the intensity quickly and can easily enter the score at any point in the measure without sounding offbeat or out of place. I wrote different music for the pre-battle chamber right before the boss fight. I composed this music to signify impending doom and fearful apprehension before a big showdown with the boss. This piece of music had an underlying pulse as well, as to stay coherent with the previous main music of the game, but I also wanted to introduce new fresh musical elements and stark contrast with much higher musical tension. All instruments and vocals were multi-samples in Ableton Live and triggered through MIDI. Here's a quick listen. For the final boss fight, the music is much more grandiose and tonal, with a loaded mid-register brass section. More dynamic and epic orchestral percussion is performed as well. I composed this music to signify the big entrance of the two final bosses, but also wanted the music to inspire the player to push forward and fight for a hard-earned victory. These instruments are also multi-samples triggered through MIDI. Both the pre-boss music and the final boss music are interactive, responding to player health status. For the home stretch, Colonel Rickson cheers you on through the last gauntlet of enemies over the bridge, leading you to the ultimate final goal, the precious carrot.
You're in the home stretch, kid. Do what you do and light 'em up. Outstanding job, Lieutenant. Let's get you home.
I'm James Mello. Thank you for watching my Wise demo reel.